Hello, my name is Lauren and welcome to the Theoretical YouTube channel, where I am once again back to discuss more Lilo and Stitch. And if my love for this franchise isn't clear yet, we're only halfway through these videos, which means that today we are breaking down the next series of Jumba's genetic experiments to figure out which of his creations is actually the most dangerous. Today we're delving into Series 3, the psychological horrors designed to mess with people's minds.
Oh, what horrors have you wrought?
So stick around after our super cool intro that somehow hasn't gotten copyright claimed yet to experience true silly alien horror. Welcome back, it's time for terror. This microphone isn't even plugged into anything, I'm just messing with you. We're starting today with experiment number 300, aka Spooky, who transforms into a manifestation of his victim's worst fear. He's basically a Bogart from Harry Potter. But I'm gonna give them a plagiarism pass here because this episode aired a year before Prisoner of Azkaban premiered in theaters. There's no excuse if they read the books. And here's the thing, it's actually really hard to determine how dangerous Spooky is because everything depends on what you are afraid of. For instance, Lilo is afraid of clowns, so he turns into a clown when she's around. But could that clown hurt her? Like, Stitch's fear is water, and he certainly appears to be drowning during his encounter with number 300. But Nani's fear is social services taking Lilo away from her custody, but it's not like Spooky actually has the ability to make her a ward of the US government, right?
What is that?
Lilo, no!
It's just really unclear as to the extent in which Spooky has a hold over reality. Are these illusions, or is it a real threat? Therefore, because of these shaky premises and the fact that his threat level is entirely based on who he's preying on, I am not going to advance Spooky on into the next round of consideration. Also, he has one foolproof weakness where all you have to do is sing Aloha Oi as long as that song makes you comfortable to face your fears.
Whenever I get scared, I just sing this. Aloha, oi. Aloha, oi.
Which definitely made that last battle in Leroy and Stitch really awkward. Moving on, number 303 is Amnesio, who's able to completely wipe people's memories. In other words, he can cause retrograde amnesia and is able to use his powers on large quantities of people at a time. Specifically, the memories that Amnesio seems to target the most are personal identification and the recognition of others, which is definitely going to cause some mass confusion if he was let loose on a huge population. However, there is a password to reverse all of these effects. If you just say the word Ohana within Amnesio's earshot, then all the memories of his victims are totally restored. And while I am generally inclined to remove points for having a weakness, this one is interesting because you actually have to use the password on the experiment itself, which is a much harder task to do than going around and individually treating victims like Babyfire or Bugbee. And if you're targeted by him, then surely you'll forget the password. And it's not like Ohana is a word that regularly comes up in conversation, which means that I am considering Amnesio to be a very dangerous experiment indeed. At least until he makes me forget I said that. Number 316 is a shapeshifter named Morpholomiu. Given any visual reference, he can transform himself or another being to take the form of someone else. Lilo uses him to disguise herself as her crush Keone, which is frankly more creepy than dangerous. Now, Morpholomiu would be an extremely useful tool for infiltrating organizations for top secret information, but otherwise he doesn't really have a significant physical threat. Sure, you could use him to do very evil things, but his power itself isn't that threatening. Number 319 is Spike, who aside from being absolutely adorable, shoots out vicious quills that make you dumb.
Okay, Stitch. Prepare for the ultimate cram session.
Battle!
In terms of intellect, not the ability to speak, although that might also be a useful tool. It's important to note here that Spike's quills don't cause any physical harm aside from a dazed sense of confusion or a reduction in logical thinking. This effect is also temporary. You could think of it as being involuntarily drugged with a substance that lowers cognitive ability. But since there's no signs of long-term brain damage, I think you could just sleep off these symptoms and be just fine. Number 320 is Cloudy, who is a light rain cloud. Maybe he could also produce torrential downpours, but since we don't see anything close to that power level on screen, I think it's safe to bring an umbrella and move on. Number 322 is Heckler, whose power is to lower people's self-esteem by insulting them.
You overly fucking overtucker!
Well, I can see you've been working on the accent. I almost understood a word you said just now.
So he's a 7th grader.
And those glasses! Let me guess, you're going for a career in welding?
I think his specific power set is literally defined as verbal abuse, which, considering Jumba's toxic relationship with his ex, is certainly considered evil, but dangerous? Less so. Lowering your opponent's morale on the battlefield is hopefully not your best weapon, a preliminary step maybe, or your desperate last resort. And if you have self-deprecating humor like this sorry sap, you are canonically going to be fine. Grow a thicker skin, and what else you got? Number 323 is Hunka Hunka, who causes a false infatuation between two people, like a classic love spell.
I think I love you. Now one moment here.
Like most versions of this stock episode, the lesson here is that true love comes from the heart and is deeper than just attraction. How many times do childhood cartoons have to teach me this? But Hunka Hunka is actually a more dangerous version of this trope because he's designed to incapacitate entire civilizations through love sickness.
And now everyone is lovesick.
And for the most part, it seems to work, except for that one pesky weakness that seems to show up in this series of experiments all the time. I guess when the powers are this large scale, the writers needed an easy way to just reverse the effects and wrap up the story in a tight 23 minutes. Anyway, just splash some water on your face and all the effects disappear.
What am I doing here?
So basically, your infatuation only lasts until the next time you take a shower, which is hopefully not a long period of time. I really should have filmed this one last. Number 344 is Dupe, who's able to make duplicates of any person or object. Now, I really like Dupe as a concept, and the fact that every time he has to make a copy of something, it's a weaker version, as if the essence of the original is being diluted. Well, it's just a really cool take on this trope. I love this episode of the series. However, this also means that even within the show itself, Dupe is not as dangerous as he first appears.
No!
Even considered a failure of an experiment designed to create huge armies or massive weapon supplies.
Making copies of my army. That's an inspired idea.
Because the power or threat level of the original is spread out over each subsequent duplicate, Dupe is not able to make anything more dangerous than it already was. Also, all of his effects can be undone easily, so therefore he's not advancing into the next round. Sorry, Dupe. Number 345 is Elastico, who has a super stretchy body. However, unlike an experiment like Sproink, Elastico wasn't designed to store or unleash elastic potential energy. Instead, Elastico is meant to be a distraction. And I must say that if I saw this thing on a battlefield, I would certainly be a little thrown off. Heck, if I saw him in a grocery store, I'd be sufficiently distracted. But in danger? Not unless my shopping cart runs into a more dangerous experiment. Number 355 is Swapper, who can make people switch minds.
Stitch?
Now Now we're talking. The most interesting part of Swapper's abilities is that the distance between the two victims seems to be irrelevant. For instance, while most of the people who had their minds swapped were in the same room, Hamsterville gets switched with Gantu over a video call.
Once again, I reiterate, you are the lamest. Why didn't I just fire you and what is going on here?
We also see Swapper scramble identities amongst a group rather than just between pairs of people. And even though the effects can be reversed, Jumba tells us that Swapper has to be motivated to undo their own actions. Which means there is no cure if Swapper doesn't want to switch everyone back. Jumba has to resort to blackmail in order to get Hamsterville back in prison. Now imagine that every interaction you had with another person, in person, or over a video call, resulted in a body swap. There would be incredible repercussions for an unstable and confused society.
Okay, now who am I?
Without the ability to verify identity beyond someone's word, there are major questions of the legal systems here. And if massive groups of people are all scrambled together, there could be a language issue. Not to mention property ownership or classified information constantly being leaked. If society can't trust who anyone is at any given time, and it's not realistic to bribe or blackmail Swapper into undoing their own work, then the infrastructure that holds up every system of government and order is likely to crumble. Swapper is definitely more dangerous than they appear, especially on that societal scale. On the other hand, Experiment 358 is Manners, who's designed to make people behave politely.
Jumbo will capture him.
No, I got it.
No, me! How rude I have been.
And I can think of very few examples where treating another person with respect results in a dangerous situation. I guess you can comment below if I'm missing something. Number 360 is Drowsy, who makes people drowsy. Not all the names can be clever. Obviously, there are lots of situations where you don't want someone falling asleep, for instance, operating heavy machinery, or if you're an operating surgeon, or while piloting an airplane, although I'm sure autopilot could probably handle that one for a little bit. I think the most realistic dangerous situation the Drowsy could easily create is putting someone to sleep while they're driving a car. According to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, as of 2017, 91,000 estimated car accidents involved drowsy drivers, leading to 50,000 injuries and 800 deaths per year. And that's without a genetic experiment running rampant in the streets. So in the same way that we once determined mulch to be as dangerous as a rogue lawnmower, I think it's safe to say that Drowsy is as dangerous as taking an Ambien on your way to work. However, while Drowsy doesn't have a weakness per se, his victims can be easily woken up by splashing some water on their face. Which seems familiar, but I guess it works in real life too. Number 375 is Phantasmo, who can take possession of any inanimate object. Okay, this time I think FNAF is getting the plagiarism side-eye.
Ready or not, Hooies and Goals, Mackie McCall and the Hammerheads are back.
Mackie McCaw's Pizzeria is canonically possessed, guys. Lilo and Stitch was just trying to warn us. So Phantasmo is meant to create chaos, which he achieves through fairly innocuous possessions, like a rag doll, a cassette tape, or a singing macaw animatronic. But pushing his power to its hypothetical limit, which is the whole point of this video series, is it reasonable to assume that Phantasmo could possess a nuclear reactor and cause a radioactive meltdown? Honestly, I don't know. On one hand, a nuclear reactor would certainly constitute an inanimate object. At least I hope so. And yet Phantasmo has had the opportunity to take control of a weapon on screen and didn't use it most effectively. Instead of choosing to be the gun that he has pointed at Lilo and company, Phantasmo chooses to be Scrump holding the gun.
He has replaced Net with my new laser cartridge. I am so proud of his smartness.
I'm not.
Is it because Disney didn't want to animate a gun come to life, or because Phantasmo couldn't take possession of something that is that dangerous in itself? My guess, it's a PR move. But what I'm going to say here is that if it is inanimate, he is able to take control of it. However, unlike an experiment like Glitch, who's designed to make tech malfunction, Phantasmo is only able to make something do what it's designed to do. For instance, he could turn on a microwave, but he can't supercharge the microwave and make it produce more radiation than normal. So in our Doomsday example, I think that Phantasmo could operate a nuclear power plant, but I don't think he could force it to malfunction. I'm okay if you disagree with me here, but since Phantasmo's threat level depends so heavily on what he is possessing, personally I'm not gonna take him too seriously. Number 383 is Swirly, who forces people to carry out the next instruction they hear.
You should really be more like your friend Myrtle. Be like your friend Myrtle. Be like your friend Myrtle.
Guess what? I get to dance on TV.
The victim is released from their trance at the snap of a finger. Okay, so hypnosis is real. Go to literally any state fair and a hypnotist will be on stage in half an hour. Hypnotherapy is also a technique that's used in everything from treating phobias to weight loss. My point is, we don't need alien technology to make people more open to suggestion. But the other thing that I know about hypnosis is that you can't force someone to do something that they would never do in a less susceptible state. And not everyone is as easily put in a hypnotic state. Swirly's one true place is entertaining children at birthday parties, and you know what? That's probably as dangerous as he's gonna get. Besides, we already have this level of control over other human beings, and that's scarier than anything else. Number 390 is Slimy, who leaves behind slippery slug trails, and as someone with a pathological fear of slugs, I'm terrified of him. However, even I have to admit that this fear is a little unfounded. Maybe I should go see Swirly about this. I'm definitely not seeing Spooky. And our final experiment of the day is number 397, aka Spats. Is it just me, or did Disney re-air this crossover episode with the Proud Family literally every other day? Spats causes arguments between people where tension already exists. His weakness, because really every experiment in this series seems to have one, is that all the victims have to do is count to 10 for the effects to fade. All the irrational anger you might feel towards someone will end.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hey, I feel not mad.
I'm sorry about fighting.
But if you have a real problem with that person, I suspect that will persist, although that's just a hunch. Now let's say you drop Spats in a UN meeting. I have a feeling that chaos would definitely ensue. You know what? I'm reading my script, and I don't want to make some of these jokes. Basically, the case for Spats boils down to this. A few arguments or even an all-out brawl aren't the most dangerous things in this series. Which means that we've come to the final deliberation period of this video. Who's moving on to the next round? From Series 3, we've determined that the most dangerous experiments are Amnesio, Swapper, and Drowsy. Now, Amnesio and Swapper are more dangerous when released on a large population, and Drowsy is more threatening on a individual scale. If everyone's asleep, it's no big deal until it rains. We all just get a real good nap. The real danger here is being asleep in a situation that requires great concentration, and that is just a smaller scale issue. Now, it's kind of weird that these two final experiments are like inverses of each other almost, but which is really more of a dangerous threat to the infrastructure of our society? Not being able to identify yourself or everybody else? In my opinion, which is totally infallible by the way, I think we would be in better hands with Amnesio. If everyone got their memories reset, it would be like a do-over for everyone. Obviously, it would be very confusing to start out, but I think it would settle eventually. Temporarily very confusing, but high likelihood of things working themselves out. And there is a way to treat the victims against the experiment's will. All he has to do is hear the word Ohana. On the other side, if everybody is constantly swapping minds, I don't think there is ever a chance of stabilizing. And Swapper's effects can only be undone if Swapper decides that the world has had enough chaos. Which frankly, I'm not sure will ever happen. Therefore, the winner of this episode and the most dangerous experiment in Series 3 is number 355, aka Swapper. I cannot believe how many 1 weaknesses were in this batch. Did Jumbo just sabotage his own plans for a few months before realizing that that was a dumb strategy?
I am so proud of his smartness.
Anyway, what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comment section down below if there is a different Series 3 experiment that you think is more dangerous than Swapper. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already, so you can stay up to date as we explore the many experiments and powers in the Lilo and Stitch franchise. For more updates, you can follow us on Twitter at Theory_Central, where I will be hypnotizing the entire world next Tuesday. Soon you will all be subscribers. Mwahahaha. You can also support this channel by joining our Patreon, like David W. and Alex Toquinto. Oh no, I'm getting more difficult names to pronounce. But until the next time I want to sit down and research silly fictional war crimes, that is all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, let's drown out Heckler in the comments, and I'll see you later.
So even though I sometimes take pictures of tourists, I don't see them socially. It's a defense mechanism.